issues that are now raging during this campaign season. But all political parties have not said anything. Atiku hasn't said anything. Buhari hasn't even been seen at any political rally apart from waving at their followers. They don't talk about them. They've been shielded from even talking and granting interviews to the media. This is the only country in the world that elections are happening in less than 2 months or thereabout. The major parties, as they call themselves, the legacy parties, their presidential candidates are not talking to anybody. They're just hiding. They're hiding behind.
But I think the PDP has started their campaigns. They've gone to certain
They're
states.
just waving at rallies that people 30 minutes are gone. I think the only thing that you can have on record that Atiku ever said was that he wants to sell the NNPC. What else has he ever said? That you know of that is worthy of engagement, debate, and interaction.
I know of one thing you said though, when you said something about if you're voted into power, and how you are going to spend money for the nation with the sale of marijuana. I think I remember.
Those are issues. That's now you're talking. Because a lot of people up until then did not understand that marijuana, cannabis, has commercial value, huge commercial value. But the same week I started it has become a global issue. Now Coca-Cola invested $4 billion, and now very soon an average Coca-Cola bottle will contain cannabis. Canada legalized it, South Africa legalized it through a high court a Supreme Court pronouncement. Ghana said they are going to be exporting.
Your idea on this is what particularly?
Is that it is to export. It's to export and make money off of. So, cannabis is going to become the new oil because it has a lot of medicinal value. A lot of people are concerned about the part of cannabis, which is about 20% of it.
So, how does that happen if it's not legalized here in Nigeria?
We have to have legal framework for it. That's why I want to be president. I'm running to be president. We will change the laws. You know what happens in this country?
Is that possible by the president and law? Is that not something that happens in the National Assembly?
No, you can have an executive order first and foremost that starts to put things in order. What is happening here is that we are burning an average of 1.5 trillion naira worth of cannabis every year. That's what the NDLA does. It does it regardless. People are smoking marijuana anywhere in this country. In fact, you can buy it from the NDLA if you want, the good ones, because they have it in their store and you know them. But what I'm saying is that instead of wasting your time and wasting the money, our budget is 8.8 trillion naira this year. If you can generate 1.8 trillion naira or 2 trillion naira from cannabis, and it's not for local consumption, it's for export. Export it to the Canadians who want it, Americans who want it, the UK who wants it, and make money off of it. There's a plant that is readily available. Our own brand of cannabis, which is known as Cannabis sativa, is one of the most potent in the world. So why waste your time? It's available. Anybody who wants to smoke weed in this country can find it. They even sell the paraphernalia at ShopRite.
All right, then. Well, let me just quickly also have. I understand that you're here with Bio Pomabo. I hope I got that name. Wara, he's a AAC's governorship candidate for River State. It's good to have you here. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I will have wanted to direct the question to you now immediately, but unfortunately, the next question was actually going to go to Professor Dr. Kenneth Wiki. I just wanted to make sure that people understand that you're here with us in the studio. I'll get back to you, Mr. Amara.
Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Kenneth, let me get your thoughts on this here, where Omoyele Sowore is talking about the elections, and she says she's brought that sort of impact into it, and that because of her, it's issue-based, and she's also raising the fears that the president might use the military to truncate the peace process during the elections.
I don't agree with that. The president is a beneficiary of a credible election, and I wouldn't subscribe to that statement from her. And of course, when somebody was a beneficiary of a credible pool, morally, you have a moral burden if you do otherwise. And so what would ordinarily suggest to her that the Mr. President would use the military to truncate the electoral process? Of course, I like I told you here earlier, that the woman you are talking about has all it takes, just like any other Nigerian, including the man in the studio here. I've been watching, we have good Nigerians, that can take over that, number one citizen of the country, no doubt. But the only problem I have here is, in Nigeria, we so much believe in party followership. So, obvious a question cannot, say that it was just because of her that the campaigns are issue based. Of course, what have the NGOs been doing? The other, including the United States of America and other nations who are European Union and all that, they have been clamoring for issue-based, campaigns, electoral process that will be devoid of violence and all that. Of course, if she also says that she is part of it, there's nothing to also doubt her. Of course, that everybody, including what we are doing here, is advocacy, for goodness sake, and nobody can single-handedly lay claim to issue-based, campaigns and all that we're experiencing today. We are not there yet. We have less than 2 months, and so we will know whether these issue-based campaigns will continue or not, ordinarily. So it's not yet to huru. So, but what we are saying here is that ordinarily, Nigerians should begin to assess individual candidates, irrespective of their parties. What are you bringing on board for Nigerians? What are your policies for me? And I no longer talk about bringing things that you cannot count. Let me talk about analog now. Number one, on road infrastructure. What is your blueprint? Tell us how many roads that you want to. Your party will sign into it. You as a candidate will sign that document. 2, health. You just list 1, 2, 3. I don't want digital.
Do you think Ezekwesili has been doing that? I mean, have you been following her campaigns? Do you think she should be listing such things as
she's not listing
issues
anything?
Around those kind of.
She's not listing. She's speaking grammar.
Okay, all right then. Because of time, let me move on to another issue that I think is important we talk about, which is still under the statement we can credit to Omoyele Sowore, where she says that the president must sign into law the Electoral Act bill, else, of course, he's not ready to have peaceful elections. What do you think about the Electoral Act bill not being signed?
Of course, I want to repeat that without any doubt. The president reserves the right to put back his pen, just like former president did, because those who made the constitution also contemplated the role of Mr. President in doing so. He has given the reasons. For me, without the new amendment, everybody knows that if you carry a ballot box, you do otherwise, it's against the Electoral Act. Do you understand? And when that matter goes to court, that election can be annulled. And so, if new things have been brought into the Electoral Act, to fine-tune, to add more value, that is cherished and is part of the best global practices. No doubt, I like that. But I challenge them. INEC rolled out their timetable as early as 2 years back, and Nigerians said it was too early. And so both the National Assembly and the presidency ought to have been proactive. Up till now, they are talking about amending when we're already in the game. So I buy into what Mr. President has said.
Okay.
Put it after 2019.
Dr. Kenneth Weke, thank you so much. Let me get to you, Mr. Sowore. What are your thoughts on that? The president not signing the Electoral Act bill into law?
Well, the provision that I'm worried about in that particular electoral law that's about, the bill that has not been signed into law is the one that enabled
the card reader,
the card reader to be transmitted immediately. And that's very important, because the only way they get to rig elections successfully here in this country is when there's delay between when voters cast their vote and when these results are transmitted to a central database. If we can get rid of that, I think elections will be fairer and fair. And I'm not in support of going to courts. We know what the courts are there for.
What are they there for?
They are there to award judgment to the highest bidder. So this is something that we all know. And you discovered that in 2015, I personally covered the 2015 election. In fact, my organization at that time, Sahara Reporters, was the first to release the first 10 states. And after that was done, even though there was an initial uproar,
You released before INEC did?
Yes, we were the first to release before INEC. In fact, we released almost all, we had declared who we thought won the election before INEC came out and started.
Yeah, but is that not against the rules too? Well, how do you go ahead and do that before INEC?
We are not bound by rules to announce free and fair elections based on our own calculations. If you go to the US, there is no INEC announcing results.
But that's US, this is Nigeria.
It's the media that announces results everywhere
But
else.
yeah, that's it. But that's the difference with what happens in US and what happens in Nigeria.
I was reporting from the US at that point.
Oh, okay,
Yes. So, yeah, the Sahara Reporters is based in New York. But we gathered information, and all of the results we released, 10 states, tallied almost exactly by 99%.
With what INEC gave out.
With what INEC gave out. But what I'm trying to say here is that when you have free and fair elections, there's less litigation. And we saw that in 2015. And when you have less litigation,
will be governor after the people have voted. I will never, not even the Supreme Court in the United States will substitute the electorates. And that's why it is democracy. Democracy is not government by the courts. So let me just make that point clear. And because those fundamental issues are not being addressed in this thing that I'm discussing, I'm not interested. My interest is that after this election, and I'm very glad that Sowore is a young man. Election is not going to end in 2019. I just told you that Ghani, who is more than all of us combined here, couldn't win Lagos because of this issue of Electoral Act that doesn't recognize the people as the ultimate power in this country. So when you reform your Electoral Act and make direct primaries compulsory, make party membership rigid, not a shallow kind of party politicians who are today in PDP, tomorrow in APC, back to PDP, and then trivializing the whole essence of party politics. In fact, if you know what the word party means, before you move from party A to B, you will think twice. And I've come to believe that we need to restrict the number of parties so that we can have the force of followership. Maybe 3, 4 maximum. If you cannot find space in any of the 4, you can be an independent candidate with strict rules for becoming independent candidate too. When you do that, I can now be a proper politician. I can now contest to become president, and you will see what I will do with that process. But the one that recognizes billionaires, trillionaires, we don't even know how they made their money. We're not even questioning how they made their money, who have impoverished us. That politics, if that's the one who want to talk about electoral law to empower those people, personally I'm not interested. I have said it that the president says he will not sign. The law says he can either sign or not sign. He said he will not sign. Those who don't want him to sign, the law says go and generate 2/3 in the National Assembly and override him. So this call sign. He said he will not sign. Why are we at the stage of sign? When the man said he will not sign, am I drunk? Don't I know when somebody says I will not do something? So I should go and force his pen and take pen for your hand side. Go to National Assembly, you discover you cannot generate 2/3. It does not exist. So we must focus now on the 2019 election. And then after this election, and I'm very glad that Sowore is a young man. Election is not going to end in 2019. I just told you that Ghani, who is more than all of us combined here, couldn't win Lagos because of this issue of Electoral Act that doesn't recognize the people as the ultimate power in this country. So when you reform your Electoral Act and make direct primaries compulsory, make party membership rigid, not a shallow kind of party politicians who are today in PDP, tomorrow in APC, back to PDP, and then trivializing the whole essence of party politics. In fact, if you know what the word party means, before you move from party A to B, you will think twice. And I've come to believe that we need to restrict the number of parties so that we can have the force of followership. Maybe 3, 4 maximum. If you cannot find space in any of the 4, you can be an independent candidate with strict rules for becoming independent candidate too. When you do that, I can now be a proper politician. I can now contest to become president, and you will see what I will do with that process. But the one that recognizes billionaires, trillionaires, we don't even know how they made their money. We're not even questioning how they made their money, who have impoverished us. That politics, if that's the one who want to talk about electoral law to empower those people, personally I'm not interested. I have said it that the president says he will not sign. The law says he can either sign or not sign. He said he will not sign. Those who don't want him to sign, the law says go and generate 2/3 in the National Assembly and override him. So this call sign. He said he will not sign. Why are we at the stage of sign? When the man said he will not sign, am I drunk? Don't I know when somebody says, I will not do something? So I should go and force in hand this pen and take pen from your hand side. Go to National Assembly, you discover you cannot generate 2/3. It does not exist. So we must focus now on the 2019 election, and then after that.
Obieze Ekwesili believes that the reason why he's not signing is because the opportunities will be available for his party to manipulate the elections.
This same electoral act have been used to do election in Nigeria for long. So what those who are saying those things are saying is that they've been rigging elections with that act. Believe me, I saw somebody said, oh, Baba will use it to write a electoral result for himself. Precisely what he has done is that he has said PDP has been writing results for themselves. AG, all those people have been winning different zones have been writing results for themselves. That's what that thing means. And that's why for me, the real reform, working with solid politicians like this who have the intellect, begins after the 2019 election. We need to transfer power to the people and establish democracy in Nigeria.
All right then. Opaka Dokubo, I have your thoughts on this finally before moving to something else.
So what I don't understand is why after 2019 election, what you can do now, why shift it? Yeah. Except somebody wants to get advantage of it. I mean, I don't understand it. The president, nobody has even said that the electoral bill as we have it now is not an improvement on
the former.
On the former. So why do you want to remain where you are when there is room for improvement? When you can clearly see, when you have clearly seen that this is much better than what you had before. Why shifting it? Why after 2019? I think there's something that somebody just does not want to own up to. And I think I will be with Omoyele Sowore and every other person.
I'm sure
who
to
has
agree with you on that.
Sure, that every other person that is imploring and urging Mr. President to sign. 2/3, yes, I agree, we can't have it in the national.
Why can't we have 2/3? Who says? I mean, are they not also excited about having that election? Why can't we have 2/3?
No. It's just not there.
I think, this is a very
just not
politically toxic period.
Exactly.
So, I mean, what you saw yesterday at the budget presentation
When they were
shows
booing,
that
there were lots of
the
booing
National
and
Assembly has become polarized
Exactly.
based on politics. So there's never going to be any 2/3 before. In fact, I'm sure that they also are itching not to do anything up to the election. So it's up to President Buhari to show that he is interested in what the majority of our people are saying. He cannot be wiser than 180 million people. And like our colleague there said, this is our position as new political operators in the country, that if you have a chance to break out of this prison called Nigeria, now, why wait till another election cycle? And that's what we're saying. It's time to retire all these old guys so that in 4 years' time we'll be discussing serious progress.
I want to quickly venture that way. The need to, like you say, retire these old guards. In doing so, I've spoken to quite a number of people here, especially on the morning show, and the uphill task for the lesser known political parties is structure. I always hear that they don't have the structure on ground that will enable them to defeat PDP and APC. And yes, it's good to see this opposition in action, but as it is now, this is something they cannot accomplish.
You see, look, I travel around this country, I didn't find anything called structure. The old parties don't have any structure. They have retail outlets for bribing voters. I'm telling you, you cannot find anywhere in this country, and I traveled extensively, where you find somebody who is ready to die for PDP or APC, or who is ideologically connected or genetically involved, organically motivated, about these parties. No, they just wait for them when they bring money. So when you are hearing structure, you are hearing about a ShopRite owned by, ShopRite-like type of place where you can go there and pick what you want. They let you go.
Really, you don't think they have them down all the way to their wards where you have?
If they did, they wouldn't have to do what they did in Ekiti and Osun State. They didn't have to buy voters on election day if they had structures. In the US, where I've lived for 19 years, you don't have to tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. You see it in front of their houses. But in Nigeria, somebody will be PDP today, by night it will be APC, tomorrow morning is back to PDP. Those are not structures. People who don't have conviction, you can't call them structures. Even the parties themselves know that they don't have structure. Otherwise, why would Atiku have to come to Port Harcourt and bring all the bureau de change with him to bribe delegates? If they have structures, they don't have structures. These guys are doing what we call transactional politics. You know, you give me money, I put my back on ground. This, like somebody said, is a shallow politics kind of thing. It's just transactional. They don't have any structures anywhere. That is why you cannot find anybody who will tell you that they are committed to any particular party ideology. And it's the reason why it's not difficult for them to move from one party to the other. There are no structures. Then don't let me lie to you.
Let me ask about African Action Congress. Yes. This party, when did it come to be?
About 3 months ago. One of the newly registered 23 political parties. Yeah.
Okay. And you said this metamorphosed from a movement.
Yes, Take It Back movement.
Yes. And how widespread was this Take It Back movement? I mean, because I'm still looking at the idea of structure and how this will help elections. How widespread was the Take It Back movement?
It's all over the country. That's why I was able to travel. I did town hall meetings, over 100 town hall meetings, including in River State here, Port Harcourt. I did town hall meetings in places that are extreme and remote as Jalingo. We did in Yola. The other day we went to Buhari's hometown.
And your conviction is that the people you spoke to are able to deliver for your mandate?
Absolutely, they are. This is because our relationship is organic. And that is to say that they are convinced based on what I told them we can do, and they look at my pedigree and they say, wow, this is it. This is what I'm trying to tell people. You know,
did you have crowds to wave at?
I don't, because I don't wave at crowd. I talk to them. I'm not talking over them. But we have a lot of followers. We were in Uyo about 3 days or 4 days ago, and people came out en masse, particularly young people who have been left out of, you know, the political process.
Emmanuel Nduku, let me quickly ask you this, because I know that several times we speak about this here when we have guests on the show, and it has been on structure, whether Nigerians can actually buy that story that we don't need structure if we need to make any change. It's not necessarily how big the party is, it's where Nigerians want to go part-time.
I really don't understand what you can operate with if you don't have structure. And I stand to be challenged by anybody who says that structures are not important. Of course, he's here, so I'm happy.
No, I didn't say I don't believe in structures. Okay. I'm saying that the parties that you claim have structure don't really have organic structures. They have retail outlets for bribery, intimidation, and corruption of voters. That's what I said.
Okay, let me take it from that way. Yeah. Assuming, like he mentioned here, that what they are doing is transactional politics. Yes. That, of course, means from his coinage that there is something like transactional politics which is in existence. And that automatically, as far as Nigeria is concerned, even if we are taking it on that level, becomes their structure. And I believe without what he calls ShopRite kind of structure or whatever, if it does not exist for a political party in this country, the party will just daydream and fizzle out. And so it is very important that political parties have structure. It's not in doubt. Because if you don't, it's more like you don't have a base.
Yeah, but he said he does. And what he has is organic.
Yeah.
He says he's able to connect to especially the young people.
The other ones have inorganic.
You know what? No, hold on. You know what? You know what I said when I was commenting on the Obi's position?
Yes.
I said it's not good to play the lizard. You know, a lizard falls up from up down. It knows his head. At least congratulating himself if no other person does so. So I believe it would be nice for Nigerians to now see that this particular brand of structure is organic or not. Not even that particular person. You can just say it as an aside, and that's what I believe, that PDP, APC have its roots on the stock. It doesn't mean they cannot be dislodged any year. But for this 2019, as far as Emmanuel Nduku is concerned, it's going to be an uphill task to dislodge them.
All right, yes.
Yeah, briefly, just to say that we have national leadership, state leadership, senatorial leadership, ward leadership, unity leadership, all those, they all exist. Because some of us are involved. They are debating issues. I have not started seeing transaction, but I can understand what he's saying. He says when the push comes to push, that money will be the determining influence. That is correct. There's no, you see, we need to be very frank in this country. We are still playing money politics because we have not carried out the kind of electoral reforms that some of us have advocated openly. And so it needs to also know that because of this money politics, he can. I wish him luck, but he knows he has uphill task facing us as a country, and that is why his entry into politics for me is very important. He could have been enjoying himself in the US. Some of us returned from that country back to this country to do what we are doing in one way or the other, because it's our job to change our society. Structure. You remember that the popular the campaign now in Nigeria is restructure. Structure and restructure. Some people think that we have the right structure. Some of us think that we don't have the right structure. No? Just as an aside, I was typing something I wanted to post on Facebook. If you watch the last 1 year, every legislature sponsored a bid to open University of Cooking in his village. University of Running Away, sponsored by Honorable Dudu. This, that. Everybody is sponsoring. Over 300, even House of Reps and Senate, to be funded by who? You see, legislators are now involved in a bill to set up one thing or the other. That is exactly what politics is not about. When you have an opportunity like the kind of opportunity we have here, I'm just urging our friend here to know that beyond 2019, his ideas.
You don't think 2019 is feasible for him?
I wish him luck. I've said so.
Well, it is very important to say that I actually believe that 2019 is the best time to dislodge the old cargoes. I can't stop calling them old cargoes because this country cannot afford to continue the way it is now. And people who have been left out of the political process, the economic process, you know, if we don't get it right in 2019, what is coming to all of us is something we cannot imagine. It's going to be a hurricane that will sweep a lot of people away, because you can't have 70% of the population who are wallowing in abject poverty and penury, whereas a few people are making it. Now you think that perpetually they'll just be watching you. You feed the greedy, and the needy are just there. One day they'll rise up, and what our voice is, we're lending our voice to that revolutionary feeling and thought in the country. So I like the arrogance of the existing parties, because
no, but obviously,
it was there the night before there was a revolution in Cuba and in France. The big people always sit comfortably saying these people can never rise up, and then one day they discover that they have a problem on their hands. So that's what you hear from the existing behemoth parties. Oh yes, we have structures because we are going to give money on election day. They have forgotten that people might rise up and say, we don't want to vote for you. We are voting for people with ideas. So ideas become the new currency, and that's what that can happen in 2 months.
There's something I got that because of the money-based politics that we have in this country, and it is so because it works for both ends. It works for those who are receiving, and it works for those who are giving.
That's why I say it's transactional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's not forget that it works because there's also the people who are interested in receiving. Now, the number of people who are willing to receive increasingly, unfortunately for us in Nigeria, are plenty and increasing because, well, poverty capital of the world, and so many other factors. How do you seek to deal with that? Because there will be people who might like what you want to do, but are interested in how much you want to part with as finances.
Oh, you know, it's going to be done by education and conscientization. What we're breaking it down to people is, you know, if they give you 5,000 naira during election day, divide it by 4 years, what do you get? Maybe 10 kobo per day, you know, and then you discover that 5,000 is your next child's education, your health. So all of it is put together in a paper or a paper bag and it's given to you as stomach infrastructure. And for another 4 years, you're dying, you have no hospitals to go to because the politicians have converted them and given it to you. That kind of education percolates more. And a lot more people are talking about it. Look, you know, we don't want instant gratification. We want a country that's working. Because before, you know, you had to tell people about USA and the UK when it comes to development. But now when our musicians go to Ghana, they send back pictures of the airport as if they went to the moon. And Ghana is just 34 minutes flight from here. So it's starting to sink into public consciousness that if you govern Ghana, we had Ghana must go in 1983. Ghanaians are now doing Nigeria must go 2018. So it's that particular intervention in public consciousness is making people have a rethink, and that is why these big parties who think that money will do it will be disgraced in 2019. If it's the only thing we can do for them so that this country can move in the direction of progress and prosperity, we are here to do it, and that's what we call a revolution.